will be available at the Generations United website. They will be up in about 24 hours. It takes a little bit of time for the webinar technology to download the recording, but that information will be available there. Also know that there'll be a short survey that will pop up when you log off to the webinar, and I just hope that you'll take just 1 or 2 minutes to fill that out. It helps us improve what we do as well as develop content for future webinars. And when we get started, I'm just going to turn it over now to Kristen Jones from the Administration on Children and Family. Kristen?
Hi, everyone. This is Kristen Jones. A number of you probably know exactly who I am because I work with you in your grants, but I am a program analyst for a few block grant programs within the Administration for Children and Families, and particularly within the Office of Community Services. And so today I'm just here serving as a representative from the federal offices. Our presence is simply just a, excuse me, I'm actually here in the webinar coming in now. Okay. But our presence is just in support of partnerships and promoting partnerships between ourselves as federal offices, as well as partnerships between organizations such as your own. So actually, intergenerational approaches is something that I've just learned about recently, and I'm very excited to learn more and for you all to learn more about it as well. And I just want to say thank you again for Generations United to coming and giving your time and your expertise on the topic and educating us all on it.
Hi everyone, this is Donna Butts. I'm the Executive Director of Generations United, and I'd like to say welcome and thank you for your interest in the webinar today and in the intergenerational practices. We've had the pleasure and honor of working with the Administration for Children and Families, helping them with a day-long meeting in April for federal agencies to look at intergenerational approaches and how they can support vulnerable families and vulnerable populations. So we were really pleased today when the Office of Community Services invited us to share some information with all of you. And we're very, very fortunate to be doing that. So today, you've got me, the Executive Director of Generations United, and Sherry Steinig, who is the Director of our Special Projects. And we're going to be going over several things today. Our goals today are really to plant some seeds. What we want to do is to share information with you, hopefully inspire some action, instigate some action, and have you begin to think about how you can integrate intergenerational practices into your work. But as Sherry mentioned earlier, we're going to make sure that we have some time at the end for questions and answers. So as we go through a lot of information, please be sure to note any questions that you might have, any comments you might have. But before I begin, I do have to mention that one of the reasons why I like to do PowerPoints or I like to share these presentations is because every year we do an intergenerational photography contest. So most of the pictures you're going to see throughout this webinar, which I think help to provide the face and the heart and the stories, were taken by younger or older amateur photographers, capturing the connection between generations. And it really comes down to what Thomas Jefferson said many years ago. The web of mutual obligations between generations is essential for a civilized society, that it's really essential that we understand that obligation and connection between generations and that we actually strengthen our communities, our country, and our world when we are involved in intergenerational practices. But what a lot of people don't realize is that there's really been a lot of evolution over the years. We can track back the first intergenerational programs to some of the early foster grandparent and senior service programs. There's been quite a bit of evolution from that time when people really thought of the programs as sweet, as nice, and as optional, not really core to the work that they're involved with. Now, more and more, we understand how important intergenerational connections and practices are in contributing to community life, to health, and that they're really tackling very serious issues. And I must mention, I love this photograph for those of you that are looking at the picture on your screen. This is an 82-year-old who's leading a teenage exercise class. And I always think that she's doing quite better than they are, actually. So intergenerational approaches can really tackle serious issues, whether those issues be obesity, literacy, which we're all concerned about, providing supports to families, and every family needs a little bit of additional support, whether, as in this case, there's a special needs child, a special situation, but family supports are very important. And grandfamilies. those families in which grandparents and other relatives are raising children. There are 6.7 million children in this country who are being raised by their grandparents or another relative. And so that support, that intergenerational support, is critical. So intergenerational approaches are important, but they're especially important in times of scarce resources. Understanding that an intervention can have multiple impacts when we engage various generations. So when it comes to economies of scope, it's looking at one impact that ripples to other generations. It can actually serve, help keep people healthier, help people keep more engaged. So it's that economies of scope. And what's really great is that they save dollars while making sense. And this is actually one of my favorite pictures because we call this gentleman in the middle our secret weapon. His name is Tom Taylor, and he's been our special advisor for a number of years advocating for children. But really, when you think about it, it really makes sense as we're all living in an aging society. Ellie Guggenheim said when she took the stage at the UN one year, in her 80s, she was in her 80s at the time, I have a great deal of interest in this whole senior citizen thing. I have a son who's about to become one. On the other end of the spectrum, understanding the importance of engaging all generations, I always remember the 16-year-old who was on a panel with me in Minneapolis. And he started his talk by saying, I've been volunteering since I was 6 months old, and now I drive myself. His mother used to take him to nursing homes, visits with her, and let people hold him. And now at 16, it was very natural for him to want to continue to volunteer and drive himself. So it really has to do with how our communities are engaging people of all ages and understanding the value of human capital that's too valuable to waste at any age. And I think Margaret Mead said it very well when she said somehow we have to get older people back close to growing children if we're to restore a sense of community, a knowledge of the past, and a sense of the future. But as her daughter, Mary Catherine Bateson, said even more recently, we're living longer but thinking shorter. How are we going to really put substance into those years that we're living longer? We know that there's a great deal of potential. So when we think about intergenerational programs, we generally group them into four buckets in terms of the ways that the programs take place. There's young serving old, old serving young, young and old serving together, and younger and older under one roof. But what do those really look like on the ground? Well, I want to share a few examples with you just to help you start to think about what some of these look like. And you may well be aware of programs in your own communities that we would love to hear about and love to know more about. So please be sure to share those with us as well. But when it comes to young serving old or older serving younger, there are a few examples. One is mentoring a child in foster care. There are school greeters programs, such as the program in a rural town in Kansas, where older adults go every Monday morning to the local grade school, and they stand outside, and as children are being dropped off, they say, welcome back. We're glad you're here. Have a great week. It's wonderful to see you. And what they realize is that sometimes that's the only positive thing that child has heard that day. So they take that very seriously. They're there every Monday. They greet the children. And when they're done, they go in the school cafeteria. They have coffee together, catch up with each other, and then they go on their way to their other activities. It's a very small, tiny, but very important program. There's also tutoring children whose parents are deployed. We all know that military families deserve all the supports that we can give them. There's the ability to share a unique skill, and oftentimes we'll talk to an older person who will say, well, I have nothing I can offer, I have nothing I can give. There was a great example in Michigan of an older gentleman who had a 6th grade education. He retired, his wife passed away, he was very lonely and thought he didn't have anything to do to give back to the community. But he was a woodworker. And what he did was he was encouraged to go down to the local juvenile detention center and volunteer his skills. So he started offering a woodworking class, and that became one of the really popular programs that's offered there. And then there's another, which has to do with time witnesses and oral histories. I first heard the term time witness when I was in Germany visiting some intergenerational programs. And there they have a time witness program where survivors of the Holocaust go into the schools and talk about what the Holocaust was like so that that time won't be forgotten. In our country, we see a lot of these programs around World War II histories, veteran histories, people who have lived through natural disasters, but it's that assurance that life goes on, that time goes on, but also capturing that history that's so critical to our culture. We oftentimes look at older adults as the carriers of culture, and we see that oftentimes in Native American populations in particular. In Boyce Fort Reservation in northern Minnesota, the Northland Foundation is supporting a project where the reservation elders are passing along their culture, their language, but also that important knowledge about how to rice, how to actually go and harvest wild rice. So it's that saving culture, it's making sure that we don't lose that or that sense of our roots. Then there are younger serving older. There are a number of programs where younger people are serving older people. In particular, services for homebound seniors. And there's an excellent example in Manatee County in Florida with a project called Manatee, and that has grown to be one of the largest adolescent community-based volunteer programs in the country. And their work started when somebody who was 12 years old was told she was too young to be able to deliver Meals on Wheels. So she said, I could do it faster, I could help you out. They said no. So she went and started her own volunteer program, and they now deliver Meals on Wheels. They do home inspections. They take pets into isolated seniors. They do nosy neighbor programs so that older adults meet their neighbors and know what's going on in their communities. There's also a senior center in the Midwest that for 10 years has been run in the local junior high school. It's run by the students as a service learning project. But the senior center itself is located in the school. The young people are responsible for the programming. They get their service learning credit, and there's wonderful relationships that develop between the generations. And then, of course, one that we all, at least some of us, always need help with, and that's technology. Young people teaching older people how to get on Facebook, how to program their phones, how to set up a website to save family history, but it's teaching technology. There's capturing and sharing the stories for posterity. And then another wonderful example out of Michigan is something called Driving Away Hunger. And that developed, I think this is a really interesting example. Some of you may have had or be involved in families. We've got a teenager that's learning how to drive. And in order to be able to have their learner's permit and they have to get enough miles behind the steering wheel. So there was a young woman and her mother driving around sort of aimlessly thinking about how high the gas costs were, and here they were driving and driving. And they got to thinking about, well, what about Meals on Wheels? So they went and they met with the local Meals on Wheels program, and they said, what if? And that what if became Driving Away Hunger, which merged the local student driving program with Meals on Wheels. So that now we have a win-win-win where young people are delivering meals, their parents are along with them, they're learning about volunteering, they're learning about the importance of that, older adults are getting companionship, and they get a tax deduction for the mileage because it's volunteer service. So again, it's sort of thinking outside of the box about what something might actually look like. And then there's terrific examples of younger and older serving together. And I want to share just a few, I think, really interesting examples in this model. One is called Across Ages, which is an evaluated program that's listed with the WHO. And Across Ages basically is a program that recruited older adults as mentors to young people who were at risk or had actually had some pretty risky behavior. And the older adults were assigned to a young person. But to take it further, the younger and older together perform community service. So it's not just a I'm here to help you program, it's we can help the community and we can do it together. So it involves that sort of civic engagement, volunteerism aspect, and helps connect a young person and an older person to their community. They're performing arts programs, such as the New Jersey Intergenerational Orchestra, where they've performed all over New Jersey, all over the world. They don't always hit the right notes, but they have a great time. The youngest member is 6, the oldest is 92, and they do a terrific job. There are great theater programs, and there's a wonderful dance program in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities area called Caros, which has an intergenerational program where they take dance into nursing homes, and they work with the local, again, juveniles who've had run-ins with the law, and they work together with nursing home residents and the young people and do tremendous dance programs. There are future festivals and community assessments that young and old do together, mapping the assets in their community, mapping the desires, mapping what lacks, and thinking about the future together. There's a program called Friends Learning in Pairs, or FLIP, and that's a program that paired older adults with middle school young people with grade school children. The middle school young people would be tutoring the grade school children in their reading, while the older adults were helping to mentor the middle school age. So again, it's that multi-generational. It's looking how to, again, leverage each generation. And then something we've seen a tremendous increase in are community gardens and local food programs. In Jefferson County, for example, down in Southern Virginia, they brought local food into the lower income senior areas, and they do it as an intergenerational program. At a program called One Generation in Van Nuys, California, they actually started a farmers market on Saturdays to help support the One Generation programs. What they did was they found they had older farmers, and then they needed younger people to help them manage the produce and help them stack it and help them work with it. So it became an intergenerational service learning program. And then it resulted in about $100,000 a year of program support that went to that particular program. So again, we're looking at win-win-wins, multiplying the wins. And then there are younger and older under one roof. And these are really creative programs that we're starting to see a lot more of around the country. Some examples of them, this is where you have more than one generation receiving services, support, or engaging each other under one roof. And really, when you think about it, it makes so much sense rather than a community trying to support a senior center, a teen center, a multi-gen center, a daycare center. Why can't we be under one roof where we can have natural interactions, time apart from each other, because we know generations don't always want or need to be together, but time to be together. So in Sun Valley in Nevada, there's a neighborhood center where they now have, they started with their Head Start and Senior Center under one roof. They found that they saved $20,000 in their annual budget by putting the services together. So now they've moved in the Sheriff's Department, and they're working on a food bank also co-locating there. So it's using that one facility. In Arizona, around the Phoenix area, Maricopa County, they no longer will build single-age facilities, but they build multi-generational centers. And a beautiful example is in Apache Junction, which they built from the ground up, that is a lovely facility that serves people from well before sunrise to well after sunset, because it's being used by different generations at the times that they're engaged in the community. And then there's Air Force Village in Texas, which is retired military, and the children of active military, and providing services in the Senior Center and Child Care Center under one roof. Then in Swampscott, Massachusetts, like many of your communities, I'm sure, at one point they were faced with this dilemma of needing to replace a 100-year-old high school and a 100-year-old senior center. Now, a lot of communities would go at loggerheads and say it's either or, not both. What Swampscott's leaders did, the visionary leaders, I think, is that they decided, hold it, why don't we look at how we can make this work together? And they did, and several years ago they built and opened what is now the Swampscott High School and Senior Center. So it's under one roof. They have a gymnasium that's much larger than it would have been had they tried to build two. They have, it's being used by younger people, older people. A day I was on a site visit there, I walked past the dance studio, and there were older adults putting on their tap shoes because they were getting ready for a production. And there were younger people who were putting on their tennis shoes because they're getting ready to go work out in the gym. And it was just natural to see these people side by side. When their library was threatened with being cut back because of some cuts in the local budget, the older adults said, well, train us and we'll keep it open. So they keep the library open 2 days a week when it would have been shut down because of budget cuts. Now, would they have driven across town? Would they have felt that that was their high school and their kids? Chances are not. But because they were co-located, it was natural, and they really enjoy it. The young people also help the older adults with technology. So there's a number of wonderful things that happen. And then in Silver Spring, Maryland, there's the Easter Seals Intergenerational Center. And again, it's child care, adult daycare, and people of all abilities that are receiving services. But it says, as Harold Shepard said, generations are not competitors for life satisfactions. They're partners in the search for well-being. It's really that win-win-win and thinking outside of the box. But are there benefits? Are there really benefits to being involved in these kind of programs? Well, yes, there are, and we're learning more every day as programs engage more in evaluation and research. There are many benefits for older adults. You can probably guess at what some of them are, but some of them include older adults who say that they have, who report a lower rate of depression. They feel like they're engaged. They feel like they've got purpose. They report being less isolated. They have enhanced social networks because they're involved with other people their age, other people of various ages. They are more optimistic, living longer, reduced risk of heart rate, and my favorite is always that they burn 20% more calories because they're on the go, they're on the move. They rely on canes less often. So there's really that continued engagement that helps bring spark and life to people. One of the things that I oftentimes say is that when we just have generations that are singularly together, a lot of times what older adults will have to talk about is pain, pills, and passing. What hurts, what medication they're on, and who died. But when you're engaged with other generations, there's that opportunity to really be involved. Some people have suggested that we really should give older adults prescriptions for volunteering to help them stay engaged. But there's also benefits for children and youth. And while I might say pains, pills, and passing when I talk about older adults, with younger people, they learn there's more to life than texting, Twitter, or Twilight. There's more to life when they're engaged in older adults' lives. For children, what we know is that young people, children who are engaged in intergenerational child care programs, they score higher on personal and social developmental scales, up to 11 months, because they have that additional interaction with older adults. They have an enhanced perception of older adults and people with disabilities. They don't see a wheelchair or a walker as anything that's unusual. They look at a picture of somebody who's 7 or somebody who's 70 and they think this person could be my friend. They report they have greater reading scores, improved reading scores, and Experience Corps, a tremendous program, has given a wealth of evaluation data that shows how much the reading scores have improved, how the behavior scores have changed, things like that. But it also enriches school curriculum when there are older adults who are involved. There are benefits for communities and for our country. There's benefits in terms of the richness of ideas when we engage multiple generations. And there's more social capital as people are more active, they're more optimistic, physically and mentally healthier, friendships develop across the ages, there's increased skills, and we're combating ageism. It's also a good use of resources. A small evaluation that we were able to commission Virginia Tech to do for us showed that in intergenerational shared site programs, for example, the greatest savings were in personnel and rent, which are oftentimes the biggest expenses that we see. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sherry Steinig, who's going to talk more about some of the opportunities and where you can access more information about these programs before we get into questions. Thank you. Sherry.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us today. We see our role here at Generations United to really help you develop and strengthen your programs by connecting you with education and networking opportunities, from face-to-face trainings to webinars, but also connecting you with practitioners in the field who are the real experts doing this work every day. I'm going to walk through now some of the resources that are available through Generations United as well as through our network to help you strengthen and develop the work that you're doing. Maybe from Donna's presentations you have some ideas of something you want to do. What's my next step? Where do I go? We'll share some of those resources now. Generations United does offer training opportunities. Every other year we have a conference here in Washington, D.C. that brings together people from around the country and around the world, all passionate, interested in intergenerational programs and building connections between younger and older people. It's coming up in just less than 2 months now. We're right in the throes of getting everything planned. But the next one will be in 2013. So if this is something that you're interested in, sort of strengthening that network, building those connections in a face-to-face manner, this is the place to do it. We also offer a series of webinars. They're on hiatus right now, except for this one that we're doing for ACF, but they will be starting back up in the fall. We have, they're free, and we have some of the past topics have been on developing intergenerational activities, evaluating your intergenerational programs, training your staff, getting buy-in from maybe your staff, participants, and administrators, ideas on marketing or using social networks to strengthen your intergenerational program. These webinars really focus more on the nuts and bolts of intergenerational programming. If it's something that you're interested in participating, again, I mentioned they're free. I would also encourage you to sign up for our e-alert, which I'll talk about in a minute, Generations This Week. That's where we announce them to get more information, information on when they're available, what the topics are, and how to register. I also wanted to share another learning opportunity that one of our partners at the University of Pittsburgh offers, is they actually have an online intergenerational course. So over a course of a couple of months, there's opportunity to take college-level classes on intergenerational programming. I've shared the link. They don't have all the details available yet, but they are going to be offering this course again in the fall, and there's the information on how to get more information about that. So our most significant resource that we provide is our website, and what you're seeing now is a screenshot actually from today's, from our website today. And this is really the place that we share the majority of our resources and assistance that we can provide. All of our publications, or almost all of our publications, reports, fact sheets that we develop, thanks to the support of our funders, we're able to put up for free, and they're available to you for free download. PDF files are up there. Those resources, again, range from how-to guides, resource guides. We have fact sheets on a number of different policy and programmatic issues, different reports that we issue. Again, all of that information is available for free. We also have information on public policy, different public policy issues, analysis, that type of information on intergenerational policy issues. We share a great deal on different program examples. Some of the information that Donna provided earlier, we have a map of intergenerational shared site programs, or the under one roof programs, that we're hoping to expand to include more other different types of intergenerational programs, but that's currently available on our website, as well as descriptions from some of our award winners. We have their program descriptions up there. We have a program of distinction designation that offer high-quality intergenerational programs. Those descriptions are available there. We're also hoping to, and I'll move forward a little bit to see some, you can see some more of the list. We're also in the process of putting an annotated bibliography of intergenerational research and resources that will be available on our website. Coming this summer, calendar of events is on the website, which will show any upcoming trainings that we have scheduled, as well as right up in the upper left-hand corner, an opportunity to sign up for our e-alerts, and then at the bottom of the page, connecting to us through social media. So here's an example of a sample of the program map, and as you'll see, the dots are showing different types of intergenerational shared site programs around the country. If you're on our website, on the live link, you can hover over those dots, and it'll give you the information of the program, as well as if we have a website or contact information or of that type of information. So it's a good way to find out who in your state, in your region, are doing these types of intergenerational programs. If you can't make it to DC to come to our conference and network with folks there, looking at ways to network in your community. And a number of communities have strong intergenerational networks where, in New York, there's a group called the New York Intergenerational State Network, NISINE, where folks meet regularly to to develop, they do conferences and trainings and resources for the state to share what they're doing. There's also a group in Chicago that tends to share their information virtually. But again, those networks are really good support systems for people developing intergenerational programs. Real briefly about our e-alerts, we offer a variety of different e-alerts, again, all free, signing up, and we try hard not to spam people with our e-alerts. Our primary e-alert is Generation This Week. It goes out weekly. We share information about Generations United's initiative, as well as other funding alerts, awards, other opportunities that we think would be relevant to people interested in developing intergenerational programs, those that come from our organization as well as from our partnering organization. It's also a venue for sharing your news, activities, or ideas. So we encourage, if you are developing an intergenerational program, have an intergenerational program, like Donna mentioned, we want to learn more about it. We'd really love to share and highlight the work that you're doing in your community. There's also a couple other alerts that are listed there that are more topic specific. If you have a co-located facility, an under one roof facility, there's an alert for that. We have a policy action alert, Grand Families Policy Alert, and then another alert for older adult advocates on behalf of children. We also have a social media presence, so if you are on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, we're there also. Our Facebook page, again, is a way for us to share great intergenerational program ideas, policy initiatives, current news. We have our Twitter feed at Gens United, which, again, we do a lot of sharing great intergenerational inspirational stories, as well as relevant news, policy alerts, program examples, things that are happening in the world, the intergenerational world. We also have a YouTube channel, and whereas we only have a couple of videos up there, what we have been active and proactive in doing is trying to connect with other intergenerational videos that are up on YouTube, so that you can go to our channel, and then we've done some screening already to connect to some of the stronger intergenerational programs to give some examples, some visual examples of intergenerational work in action. Another area that we haven't talked a lot about yet today is grand families or grandparents and other relatives raising grandchildren. And there are some resource websites available that I wanted to make sure you are aware of that could be helpful in the work that you do and any services that you need, that you are providing, supporting these families. There's a website, the Grand Family State Law and Policy Resource Center has a website, which is www.grandfamilies.org. There's a searchable database of state laws and legislation, different summaries and comparisons of the laws, personal stories, and other relevant resources and publications. There's also a project that we are partnering with a group of organizations on to develop fact sheets for all 50 states, District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. It's at www.grandfactsheets.org. These state-specific fact sheets, again, have the state-specific census data, state-specific programs, policies, state laws, and benefit programs that exist there. So again, those are resources that are available for you and that we hope you'll take advantage of using. So some specific program development information. So you really want to start an intergenerational program and you're trying to decide where to go. A couple of resources that I wanted to point you to. One is Under One Roof, which is really looking at those co-located programs. You have access to older adults, you have access to the children and youth, and how do you develop an intergenerational program? This very comprehensive guide is available for free on our website, and I've included the link. Now, for building larger community initiatives and intergenerational initiatives, probably the most comprehensive resource out there was developed by the Intergenerational Center at Temple University. I have their website listed there. The publication is currently on sale, and I think there's plans to put it up on the web. But that's, again, just a good resource to look towards, their website and their program examples that they have. As far as activity guides, you have the program established. What do you do with the older adults and the kids now that you have them there? Two resources to direct you to again. At Penn State, they've developed a free intergenerational activity source book. There's the link to get you to the website, intergenerational.cas.psu.edu. This source book is a phenomenal resource that just has a wide range of icebreakers, activities, get-to-know-you activities, as well as more in-depth intergenerational activity guides, and really written out in great detail about the resources that you might need, the different steps to make it happen. We've also developed, in partnership with Virginia Tech, their Neighbors Growing Together program, a tried and true guide for intergenerational activity at shared site programs. And this guide is directed towards young children and frailer older adults, but a lot of the ideas in there would easily be adaptable to other populations. And we're in the process of finalizing a tried and true for teens guide, which would have activities specifically for teenagers in developing intergenerational activities with older adults. I also wanted to share just some ideas if you're interested in getting more of the research and the evaluation information. As I mentioned, our annotated bibliography will be up on our website later this summer, but you could also, there's a Journal of Intergenerational Relationships, which is the premier journal for showcasing research, program examples, thoughts from the field on intergenerational programs. If you were interested in subscribing, there's a link there, but we also know that you can access it through a lot of universities and colleges and certain libraries. And then a couple years ago, we published a document called Intergenerational Shared Sites Making the Case, which really pulls together some of the demographic and rationale for co-locating intergenerational programs, as well as the evaluation findings, some of which Donna had shared earlier on the documented benefits for older adults, for children and youth, and for communities. And that's available for free on our website. So some of the next steps, we know that we've provided you with a very kind of quick overview of intergenerational programming, but for resources, you can again, attend our conference. We'll be putting, and if you can't come, we'll be putting presentations and PowerPoints up on our website. We would encourage you to sign up for our e-alerts, opportunity to join our National Learning Network, as well as just thinking about ways to promote intergenerational ideas, practices, programs in your community. Donna had shared some really creative and innovative ideas, and most intergenerational programs are simply developed by someone thinking a little bit outside of the box and looking at the resources that already exist in their community and how they can strengthen the work that you're doing. We have some questions already, but now is the time to really move into the questions that we have. So if there's questions, I thought I saw a question come up, but I'm not seeing it now. So I see that someone has their hand raised, and it's easier if you can, through your interface there should be something where you can type in your question. Or what I'll try to do is I'm going to try to unmute the person who has their hand raised, and if you can just bear with us as we're always dealing with the community, the technology, and you can see if you can ask your question. So it's Joyce Seamers. Joe. Oh, Joe. I'm sorry. Joe, if you're on the call, I've unmuted you, so hopefully you'll be able to ask your question. Joe, are you there?
Okay, Joe, why don't you go ahead and type your question in, and we'll go to the next one.
Okay. We're going to go to Heidi Cleveland. All right, Heidi, I've unmuted you, so if you can ask your question.
Sounds like Heidi needs to type her question in, too.
Okay, we're going to try one more. Rovinia Vaughn. See, Rovinia Vaughn, are you on the call? We're having some issues with people's questions, so let's see if I can. Okay. So our question, the question we have right now is, can we talk a little bit about generating measurable outcomes across funding streams? So I'm not sure what your I'm not exactly sure what types of funding streams you're talking about. We talk with a lot of folks about looking at the intergenerational outcomes of their work. So you may have specific outcomes for if you have a funding stream directed towards youth activities or a funding stream directed specifically to older adult activities. And often those funding streams do have barriers that make it a little bit challenging to develop intergenerational initiatives, but not at all impossible.
And I wonder if part of what you're thinking of when you think talking about generating measurable outcomes across funding streams is that the Experience Core evaluation, for example, did look at what the impact was for the older adults and what the impact was for the children. And then those results can be used to either make the case with a funder who's more concerned about aging or a funder who's more concerned about children and youth or educational attainment. We've also started to have tried to encourage funders, which includes the federal government, to really be thinking about explicitly including intergenerational practices in their request for proposals and in their request for applications. And we've seen some foundations, for example, in Jacksonville, Florida, where they offer a certain amount of grant dollars if you're serving children, a certain amount if you're serving older adults, but twice as much if you're engaging both generations. So that's the kind of effort we're encouraging as well.
A couple other sort of, I guess, points of or questions or issues that a couple people joined the presentation late because of time zone differences. We are recording the presentation, and the whole PowerPoint presentation will be available at the Generations United website. I'll put a link up there. You can also email me directly, which was the email address that you should have received all of when you registered from. It's Sherry, my name is Sherry Steinig, and it's SSTEINIG@gu.org.
Then we had someone who asked about where we should send our examples of intergenerational programs. And again, if you could go on our website, and you can either email Sherry directly or go to gu@gu.org. You'll notice, again, the program map, and we would love to add your program in your community to our map so that it's up there for everyone to see.
The last slide of the presentation does have our contact information on it, so my email is there, phone number, all that type of information, so you could access it there. We have another question for someone asking if there are concerns with regards to background checks in these programs when working with youth. And I think that a lot of programs are basically what we encourage and recommend people to do is to maintain whatever types of background checks you would do that are appropriate for the types of presentations. If you have screening for all your volunteers, and you would want to make sure your older adult volunteers go through that same type of screening. There's also intergenerational programs, which are group programs, where the group of youth and the group of older adults are always supervised by appropriate staff. They see those as more activity programs and don't have to go through the same level of background checks. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of these types of initiatives happening around the country. I think it's often people are just looking at ways to both protect their population in an appropriate way, but also encouraging this type of interaction.
We also have a question then about experience with under one roof living within the same facility, not just community centers. And this is Reverend Joe Martinez who is saying we're proposing an intergenerational living facility, small, with a community garden connected to it and possible shelter for 12 aging out foster youth. It's a wonderful example. I've heard of a couple of other similar efforts underway around the country. For example, one in Salem, Oregon, at Wilson House Jason Lee, where they're building a forever home for young people aging out of foster care on the site of a continuing care retirement community. So there are some examples of facilities where populations are living together. There's an Easter Seals facility in Florida that is for older and younger people with disabilities. There also are several facilities that have been built now for grandfamilies, grandparents raising grandchildren, housing projects, including one in the Bronx, New York, and then two that are under development in Tennessee and Chicago, and several others around the country. So there are some facilities where we have heard about this. There's also an absolutely beautiful example, two beautiful examples, one in Rantoul, Illinois, called Generations of Hope, Hope Meadows, and that was a military base that was decommissioned. And Brenda Ehart, who's a tremendous bundle of energy and vision, fought the Pentagon, bought part of the property, and moved in adoptive and foster families into homes side by side with lower income older adults who were given reduced rent to participate and be involved in the children and families' lives. And then in San Diego County, San Pasqual Academy, which was an old college campus that now is a group home for foster youth. And on the same campus, there are houses that they made available to, again, lower income older adults for reduced rent, and their only charge was to care about the kids. And so they've done everything from starting gardens to teaching how to run a roadside stand with the produce they've grown, to doing poetry slams, to making the clothes for the kids' plays, and they're just very engaged in their lives. So there are a number of examples that I think can be very inspirational. Some of them are on our website. Others we're happy to share more information about.
We had another question stating that most of the examples of intergenerational programs you have given seem to be based on public funding or nonprofit funding models. Have you seen any examples where for-profit organizations have tried to implement this service model? I mean, I can just share that we've done some work with for-profit nursing homes and for-profit adult day care programs that have developed more of a public-private partnership with school districts and other service agencies to develop intergenerational facilities and intergenerational programs within their walls. So that's been my example with the for-profit world, has been through that specific service delivery model.
There has been some interest among some corporations knowing that caregiving across the life is important to their employees. So they have sought to start adult day and child care center on their corporate headquarters. And what we know from some of the shared site programs is that it really does help with employee retention. In South Dakota, for example, the workers at a nursing home can bring their children to the child care center, and so the staff feels much better knowing that their kids are on site, their children are on site, they can visit their children, and they don't have to worry about them. So we've heard of some interest among corporations. We haven't seen that much activity there yet.
And then somewhat of a follow-up to that, another funding-based question. Someone asked if we have any funding to offer or sources of funding to recommend.
We at times have small seed grants that we can offer to help begin the programs. For example, we just closed a round of youth entrepreneur grants, providing $500 grants, I believe it is, to young people who are connected with an organization or an agency that want to start a program serving or engaging older adults. We at times do have small seed grants, and so that's why, again, I would encourage you to sign up for Generations this week, because that's where we usually make those announcements. But that's if one of our funders makes it available. When it comes to other kinds of funding sources, what we have found, where we found the most openness has been with community or local foundations. Oftentimes community foundations may not have a lot of unrestricted money, but they see this as a way of being able to serve the different funds that they have available. And we've seen the leadership of some community foundations like the Northland Foundation in northern Minnesota, where they've actually provided grants to 9 communities to start intergenerational work. So I would encourage, I think, that the family foundations, community foundations are the ones where we've seen the most interest. With family foundations, what we find is that oftentimes the family members have different interests, but they all coalesce around an intergenerational message. If they care about older adults, if they care about children, if they care about the arts, whatever they care about, that it coalesces around intergenerational. And then what we're doing, and I would encourage you, if you're excited about this approach as well, what we're encouraging is looking at talking with funders, talking with people who are in the development stage of their request for proposals or notice of funding available. For example, the Race to the Top money that was just announced, there isn't time for a public input time, but there was a blog available where you could give input. And so we were one of the first blogs saying, be sure to mention intergenerational strategies as something that communities should consider when they're thinking about their applications. How can they engage older adults? How can they engage younger people? Because what we do know is that if it's not implicit, if it's not out there, that people don't automatically think about, oh, it's a tutoring program, I'll go find older adults, or it's a program to help older people stay in their own home, I'll go see if teenagers can be involved with this. So it's really a matter of helping funders think outside the box too. And if you need a resource for that, on our website under funding or under funding news, there's a piece called Stronger Together, a call to innovation for grant makers. And that really works to make the case to funders about why they should get out of their silos and fund across the ages.
Again, if other additional questions come once you think about this, feel free to contact us. But I think we're just going to try to wrap it up now with a little bit more information to share.
What I wanted to close with was just a couple of thoughts. And one, I think Albert Einstein said it so well when he said, most people see what is and never see what can be. We get so caught up in the way that we have siloed and segregated our age groups that we've forgotten that it's natural, that it's normal, that we have things that each generation and talents and skills that each generation can provide. And one way to really be thinking about this is to use an intergenerational lens. I can't look at any issue or opportunity without thinking about how can young people, how can older people, how can people be pulled in and engaged as assets or resources to each other? How can we tap the creativity and the wisdom that each generation brings? Because for all of us, it's a matter of remembering that it's not a fight, it's a family. We're all a part of that larger family, and it's not a fight over resources. It's how we can engage and use resources more effectively and really engage and look at all generations as contributors to our viable and vital communities. So in terms of additional contact information, this gives you our address as well as our website, Sherry's email address, and please do stay in touch. Let us know if there's if you're of your models of what you'd like to share. Join the network, and we would welcome you and look forward to that as well. So Sherry, I'm going to turn it back over to you for the final.
So again, as you log off, this is the information for today. We hope you'll be joining us in our future webinars in the fall. There will be a short survey that should only take you 1 or 2 minutes. That'll pop up, and please, please, please do that. It really helps us with improving the webinars as well as developing content, because our content is based on the interest that we see from from folks in the field. So thank you again for joining us today.
And you might be able to encourage your federal funder to offer additional sessions if that's something that you think would be helpful.
So thank you for joining us, and look for the PowerPoint slides and a recording of this presentation on our website. Thank you.